Executive for HE. So guys, what we're going to talk about today is modern deployment, modern IT. And what that means, what it's about, and how the market is changing, how IT is changing to a more dynamic digital form of IT, a lot less traditional infrastructure-led IT, but a lot more cloud-based, and how the market is trending towards that. So, in the modern workplace, there's a lot of new requirements. It's a lot about the user. It's user-centric. It's work anywhere, work anytime. Teams are a lot more distributed. Bring your own device is a big thing. So it's all about how you manage this new workplace, how you manage these users, how you empower the users, and move away from being device-centric. It's not about the device. The device is to empower the user to be able to do what they need to do, and how IT can support that moving forward. Obviously, that brings some challenges as well. So what I'm going to talk about throughout the course of the presentation is, first of all, what the market's doing. Secondly, what we are also doing and how we can help you to support your users as you go down this journey of modern IT. So first of all, like I said, IT is the forefront of change. It's all about digital transformation. This old form of, provisioning devices manually, USB sticks, infrastructure-heavy IT is all going away. Microsoft is pushing, I'm sure you guys have probably heard of technologies like Autopilot, where they're pushing provisioning to the end user. So there's no longer going to the IT department where you've got a whole load of machines sitting on a bench being imaged. It's about getting the device from our first-line manufacturing to the end user and let them deploy that device themselves without IT having to get involved. And that does bring its own challenges, and I'll talk about that as we go through the presentation. But it all is about the user, guys. It's all about the user centricity, mobility, and seamless deployment. So having a deployment that doesn't require any touches from manufacturing to maybe the user's home, delivered direct to the user. Forward on that one. So this is the old way of thinking. It was all about the device. Device, device, device. Device was the center of attention, and then everything else around it was configuring from the factory, loading images. It was a very isolated approach to IT. The device controlled what the user could do. The way we're moving forward in the market now, or the industry now, is the user has the power. It's down to IT. It's all about the device first of all. It's about the user, but it's down to IT and you guys to empower those users. To make sure that your organizations are following the latest trends in the market. So this is why we've put together these modern IT kits. So you can take these back to your organization and say, this is where the market's going, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to keep in line and keep up to date with that trend and the market as it changes. So why Lenovo, first of all? I'm sure you guys have all heard of us, number one PC manufacturer in the world. Don't need to tell you about our background, but it's all about our excellence in terms of supply chain, production management. A lot of people don't know that we actually have a very big services organization within the company as well. We're not just a hardware vendor. We have our imaging technology centers across the world where we create custom solutions for thousands of customers. We have deployed millions of custom images across hundreds and thousands of customers across the globe. So we actually have this in-house. Some of you may or may not be aware of it, but it is a very big services organization we have in the company. We were the first OEM PC partner to actually go ahead and launch technologies like Autopilot. We've been working with Microsoft for the last year. The competition is sort of catching up, but we are way ahead of the competition in terms of the offerings that we've got and the work that we've done with Microsoft and the experience that we've gained from that as well. And that's part of what I'm going to show you today with the kits that we've developed. Sorry. And then things like we have, cloud solutions. We have our own cloud portals whereby, we can provision these devices remotely, pre-provision, reload, rebuild. So, we have a whole infrastructure of services around these devices. So looking at the actual modern IT, there's some things that, moving away from doing custom images yourself, we have put together the kits, so you've got to take into considerations like what you're going to use as a base. Where do you start? How are you going to get these devices under control in your network? Because if they're not coming through your IT department, they're going direct to the end user, you have to make sure that the security is in place, they're in control, and they're in your network under control. And how do you do your line of business, your persona? Not every user uses the same applications. You've got different applications, you've got different requirements for your users. And then lastly, how do you recover? Equipment does go wrong, operating systems do crash. You want to get that user back up and running as quickly as possible, especially for remote users working from home. If they're hundreds of miles away from an IT point or an office, it can be very disruptive to them. So you want to be able to get these users up and running remotely and as quickly as possible, because when that user's down, you're losing money. Simple fact. So these are the kits. So these are the services. I'm going to go through some of the kits that we put together, but I just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the services. So if you're doing the Autopilot and Modern IT deployment, like I said, you're going to need a base to start from. To avoid having to create your custom images and manage those custom images is a very time-consuming process. We have created base images for you. We have what we call a ready-to-provision preload, which is a Windows 10 base preload. What we've done is taken the standard preload with all of the bloatware and the consumer applications. We've stripped that down to make it a very corporate, slim, light image, so you can use that as your base. We are the hardware manufacturer. There's no one better than us to create the image. We have the technicians, we have the ITC engineers. We are in the best place to create that image for you, and we will transition that for you when you move to the next hardware model as well. So you're not having to build another image every time you transition models. You just come to John, you say to John, this is the hardware we're going for, this is the image we want, and we're off you go. Simple as that. No engineering resource needed, we'll do all of that for you. So we've got the RTP image, which is the base preload, and then we've got the RTP Plus. So what the RTP Plus does is allows you to give us your corporate applications. So we will then bolt those corporate applications down to the base image in our first line manufacturing, so where the end user receives that device, they're not having to go to the cloud or go to Intune to push down gigs and gigs of application data, which depending on your connection, that can take some time. So you're pretty much getting the user out of the box with their corporate applications, with your corporate image, so you're already around 70 to 80% deployed before the end user even gets that machine out of the box. Things like asset labeling. Most of your organizations will probably have asset labels. The last thing you want the end user to have to do is to stick on a sticker and register that device themselves. We'll do that in first line manufacturing. We do the asset tagging electronically as well. So even if you're deploying to remote users, you can use a remote WMI call out. You can talk to that device over the air and retrieve that data back without physically having to scan these devices. So it really makes that deployment a lot easier. Custom images, if you do still have a requirement for custom images, like I said, we have the engineering resource. We can create those for you. We can manage those for you, and we can also load those for you as well. One of the key things here, guys, all of this is done in bare metal manufacturing. We do this when we build the machine. So two things there is there's no additional lead time, and there's no additional logistics either. You're not having to take these to a configuration center, ship them in, ship them out. There's a lot of cost, there's a lot of time associated to that. We do it in bare metal. So it's the most efficient, cheapest way to do this. Things like drop in the box. So alongside the Autopilot and modern deployment, a lot of our customers really see a lot of value in this service. It's basically you can give us electronically up to 20 pages of anything that you want us to print out, again in first line manufacturing, and drop that into the box. So when the end user opens this box, they've got all of this good stuff here, but they've also got an instruction or a set of a guideline. It's comforting for the end user to have something when they open this box. It could be technical support contact details. Anything you like to be on there and presented to the end user. Policy. So Autopilot, as I've already mentioned. So I'll very quickly talk about Autopilot. So Autopilot is a combination of technologies. It basically puts your Active Directory in the cloud using Azure AD. And then you have EMM or MDM, Mobile Device Manager, things like Intune, Mobile Line, AirWatch to actually control that device. So what we do in first line manufacturing is we will take the information from the device. We will then push that straight to your tenant in the cloud. So you will then, in your EMM, you will receive a report of all of these devices that are being shipped to you. You then go and assign those to a user. When the user logs into Azure AD, your EMM will automatically deploy down to what you or that user's requirements are. So IT doesn't need to get involved in this at all. So let's be careful of time here, guys. So so that's the autopilot part of it. And then we also have our own services of advanced deployment services, which is a menu-driven deployment system. Simple questions. We interrogate the user. What line of business are you in? What is your geographic location? What building? What office? And we can script to deploy everything that's needed for that user. Persona management. We can know things like cloud provisioning, user environment management. So that's all part of what we bundle into these kits as well. And then finally, recovery. We offer digital downloads. We also offer cloud recovery. You can do bare metal recovery from the cloud anywhere you are in the world. And also warranty and support services. Things like Premier support, give you dedicated account managers, gives you soon to be 24/7 support lines. You go straight to a level 2 engineer. You're not going through the scripted questions. So it gives you that next level of protection on those devices. So the modern IT kits themselves, what are they about? Is to give IT teams more governance, give you control of what the deployment looks like, what the environment looks like, and it's unified. So it's the same experience across the organization. You're not having to manage different parts of it. It's a very uniformed approach, which also drives the efficiency as well. And IT productivity. You guys are skilled people. There's not a good use of your time and resource to be imaging machines and provisioning machines. Let that be done somewhere else. Make that somebody else's problem so you can focus on your users. You can focus on your environment where your focus should be really, and grow the business. So, for the users, it gives them the experience of what they're looking for. They're not having to wait for their machine to be re-imaged, or they've got a new machine, they're having to wait a day or two or however many hours for it to build and download what it's downloading. It's a great experience for that to get the device out of the box and be up and running within minutes rather than hours and having to wait for these devices to deploy. And a reduction in IT support. And that, again, drives efficiency, brings down your cost, and it all drives a lower TCO, lower total cost of ownership over these devices. So the kits themselves, we've sort of put these kits together, working with customers through this whole journey we've had with Autopilot. So, these are modular. You can pick and choose things out of this, but we've put these together to make it easier for you guys to decide, what's best for your environment. If you've got less IT support, maybe you want to go for one of the higher kits. If you've got a very good IT support, maybe you want to go for the kit with lower degrees of IT requirements. But this pretty much takes care of most of your requirements. So you've got your base image, you've got your instructions to the end user. We asset tag the device in first-line manufacturing. We do all of the custom BIOS settings, setting up the passwords, doing all those sort of things, and obviously Autopilot is included in that solution. So the user gets the device. All the user has to do is log in with their AD credentials, and then the rest of the deployment takes place. So that's the entry-level kit. Our ready-to-deploy kit takes that one stage further, where we add things like cloud recovery, we add things like RTP+. So you're taking it that stage further for the deployment, where the ready-to-deploy DIY kit is probably around 50% of the deployment. Now you're getting to around 75 to 80% of the deployment. And with our last kit, with the ADS provisioning, you are pretty much instant productivity. The user can get the machine out of the box, plug it in, log in, and start working. They've got everything they need. The only thing that needs to be done is you're going to push your policies down through the cloud for just security on that device, which probably take a couple of minutes. So those are the three kits, guys, varying degrees, like I said, but it's all modular. If you decide, you like this, but you don't want the ADS cloud provision, you don't want this, work with us, and we'll put together a solution that's best for you. And this is one of my last slides, actually, just to talk about the entire life cycle. I've just talked about the deployment part, which is just over here. But we do have an entire life cycle of services, right through from planning where we can sit down with you, we can do things like whiteboarding sessions, we can map out what you're doing in terms of when you place an order on Lenovo, right to the point where it gets to the end user's desk, or even further, right to the point where you dispose of this machine. We can do solutions from cradle to grave. We will do asset recovery solutions, we can dispose of those machines, return the residual value of those machines back to you to offset your next hardware purchase. So that is a complete life cycle, guys. You will have these slides. You've also, if you want any more details, please come back to John or to Sean or myself. You'll have our details, and we can take you through this, guys. Like I said, right the way from planning, the actual configuration in factory. We can do physical deployments. We can put feet on the street. If you need help with engineering, we can get that done. If you're moving sites, you're doing a big deployment, you don't have that resource yourself, we can put that in place for you. Support, I already mentioned, things like Premier support, accidental damage, if you've got requirements to keep your hard drive, if it goes in for service or repair, you have those sort of services. Cloud recovery, data backup, right through to, like I said, the field services, and then right through, through to the retirement and deregistration of those devices and disposal of those devices. And that sort of brings me to the closing there. So, if you want to know more, get in touch with us. We'll sit down and do that as we need to, whiteboard sessions. If you need a quick call, we can go through a quick call. If you need me on site, we can come on site and do that as well. Any questions, guys? Yeah, sure. No, you're the only one.
So some of your competitors require us to choose specific models to have a solution like that. And if we want to change model, we have to go through a whole engineering cycle to get the solution on a new model. Is this model agnostic, or do you customize this per model?
So this is supported by all of our Think hardware. So all of these manufacturing services, the autopilot, all of that. So we do that as part of a CTO configuration, and all of our Think hardware is underneath that umbrella. Some of the consumer models, no, but Think definitely.
And would you be able to help do the application packaging? Because we've got about 100 applications that we deploy for our student build, for example. Or is that something we'd have to do and give you the packages?
We could do the deployment of the packages. We have our own partners that we can use to help you with that. That wouldn't be something that Lenovo would do themselves, but we do have partners that we can assist you with that on. Is that for your packaging remediation, rationalization sort of things, or?
Well, just doing the packaging for the applications to deploy on the desktop. So we have
Like a silent install for the application, or okay, yeah, we can help with that. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you very much. Should we give these guys a round of applause? That was really good.